This week on Great Chat, we discuss whether or not we're in a bubble that's about to burst, and if we are, what to do about it. I'm Helen, and I'm joined by Sally and Angela. Great Chat is brought to you by Mercury, the fintech used by entrepreneurs through every stage of company building. We use Mercury to run this podcast and love recommending it to other founders and fund managers. Try it for yourself. Visit mercury.com to join over 200,000 entrepreneurs who use Mercury to make managing their money unbelievably simple. Hello.
Hi, ladies.
So, Sally, I thought you went to Paris, but I see that Angela actually went to Paris.
You will not see any signs of me in and out of the Louvre. Guys, if you're stealing priceless jewels from the Louvre, if you don't wear them on a podcast, what else can you do with it? So
That's right. They'll never catch you.
It feels so Ocean's 11. Like it almost feels like this was a storyline made by AI. Like, how is this even possible?
Yeah, because of the chainsaws. like I was reading the head. I was like, wait, did I read that correctly?
Chainsaws, or
chainsaws. That's a Sora video.
Yeah,
This is all a hallucination.
But I was reading that these the jewels were not insured, and so I think that
Really?
the government is just eating the cost of it. But also, I was thinking, would they ever actually sell it? Like, what is the value of these jewels to the French government? Like, aren't they just sitting in the Louvre? Like, if France runs out of money, are they actually going to be selling these, or just
I did see someone did do a breakdown of, like, the cost of all the diamonds and rubies, as some of its parts, and because they're not gonna be able to sell obviously, the jewels on the black market. I think the diamonds were worth, like, $4 million, and, like, so it's kind of interesting where it's gonna show up, but
Okay.
it's kinda sad. It's gonna like, the only way that they can sell on the black market is to actually just sell it in pieces, and, these jewels might never be able to be in its form again.
Real question, how much resale value of the parts would you need to have for you to engage in a heist? Like, what's your clearing
Oh, by the way, we should also add that the price of diamonds are going down because of the topic we talked about in the past, lab-grown diamonds.
Okay, no, but Sally, like, are we talking 5 million, 10 million, 100 million? Like, what loot amount do you need for you to be wielding a chainsaw and breaking into the
Well, I don't know. Apparently, it's not that hard, and, it's 7 minutes, and they haven't been caught, and I don't know, the bar might be a little lower than I thought. There was a funny meme I saw this morning that said, if you unleash, because Taylor Swift, it always goes back to Taylor Swift.
Always.
Taylor Swift has, vault full of some of the music that she hasn't released, and so they were like, "If you unleash the Taylor Nation and say, 'Hey, find the thief in 24 hours,' and they would find it so much faster than anyone else that are looking for them."
Guys, total plot twist, like, this is the new direction for the pod, like, we're gonna solve the mystery of the Paris jewelry heist. I'm into this for
Mystery and
season 4.
murder mystery pods thrive.
Ugh,
There was no murder here, right?
of
No one was
murder.
actually hurt by the chainsaws. I don't think anyone was hurt in the chainsaws. There was an article yesterday about A-Star Capital putting 20% of their fund into companies founded by teenagers. I feel like kids are everywhere in SF right now, and on Twitter, it's just like, I dropped out of Stanford to do this, or I'm 15 and I'm chief of staff at this like SaaS company. And I think I've refrained on making comments because it's just such like a millennial thing to do, to kind of talk about how young everyone is. But there was literally an article talking about, investing in teens, literally teens.
Or the, like, YC batch just getting younger and younger. By, like, next year, it's gonna be
Right. Someone said, they just visited SF and some of the data points, but that they learned that the average age of YC founders went from 30 to 24, which is wild in like a short period of time. And I wonder if it'll stay there or go younger.
I don't know. I think it's also a great marketing engine for them to just put it out there, right? Like, we're talking about it. The fact that, it's Kevin Hart's fund, who started Eventbrite, and, I don't know, it'll definitely be a way to attract certain founders. Obviously, much higher risk when it comes to some of the profile, but
Well, you just gotta go earlier and earlier, right? There's alpha in going earlier when especially when these prices get out of control.
we're gonna have, like, high school scouts at these
I
funds.
think they exist.
Oh, yeah.
Like the Math Olympiad and, like, there are all
Oh,
these,
that's
like,
true.
places that where there's signal.
I'm just impressed at this current generation and the fact that they're, like, starting companies when they're teenagers. Like, I think back to when I was a teenager in the dinosaur ages, and, I mean, what was I doing? I was, like, watching the OC and, you I don't know, shopping at Abercrombie, like, not anywhere capable of, having a mindset of starting a company, so I think it's pretty incredible that they can find this many teenagers to back to start companies.
On the other side of the spectrum, I saw that, Everett or Ev Randall, who is a KP, just joined Benchmark as the latest general partner, and I thought it was interesting because for at least a few months, people were just wondering the future of Benchmark, where they were going. Sarah had left, and, was it Victor had just started his fund, and then the big loss was last year. Miles Grimshaw had left and returned back to Thrive, and so this like storied venture firm with like Bill Gurley at the helm many years ago didn't look like it was gonna. I don't know. It was just whittling down, and so I've spent a little time with Ev when I was a scout at KP. Like incredible, incredible investor, always available. Great like thought partner on so many different things, so I think it was a huge win for Benchmark.
And young, right?
Yeah.
Because I think Victor and Miles were, like, relatively young, so I think whenever, like, the bench kinda, like, gets gutted, it's important to, like, fill the bench back with, like, sort
With a
of
good mark.
yeah, yeah, succession planning, in mind. I just saw the trolling of the announcement, and it's like, I don't know, one of the ones I saw, I felt like was crossing the line on trolling. It, like, looked like it maybe, like, was more than friendly banter, and I just X is so weird for me right now. Well, so today we can film this podcast because I guess AWS is back up.
Yay.
Yeah,
My favorite part of this
and
whole saga was that Amazon stock was up, like, 1.5%, despite the outage because everyone realized how important AWS was to the running of the world.
trying to think of equivalents to that. I mean, doesn't, like, Amazon.com go down all the time? And then they,
Well,
like,
like,
run the
WordPress is a good example. I think 40%
mm.
of the world's internet is powered by WordPress. When WordPress goes
I think
down,
that
like
number went down because 'cause I've been citing the 40% for, like, 15 years.
oh,
But
really?
maybe
Yeah,
it's still
I think
40.
I think I saw
Okay,
recently when they were doing there was obviously this, like, battle between
okay,
WordPress and
cool.
them.
Now I believe it.
But yeah, like, New York Times is powered by WordPress, among many other corporate sites, so
Did you see any jokes on the AWS stuff? I thought it was kinda funny.
I saw one, where there's, like, an image of, like, the whole internet and then this, like, tiny little AWS, was it, like, US 1 like, East Coast 1 or something,
Yeah, yeah, it's like a little, like,
holding up the
stick.
entire
Yeah, yeah.
internet infrastructure. Well, okay, not to go down this, like, dark doom scenario, but I have been recently thinking about how if the grid did go down, so you know how, like, The Simpsons has been able to predict a lot of these, like,
Yeah, yeah.
future things, and one of the things that is supposed to happen, Angela Queen Angela over there is just dying, for those who cannot see with her crown. But I'm a doomsday planner now, and I am afraid that, like, a grid could go down, and so I have created a go bag.
Oh, didn't, like, journalists start the idea of a go bag?
We've always had a go bag, yes.
Yeah, so
I mean,
you
like,
just, like, dusted off your old go bag.
but that's a different go bag. That's a go bag to, like, run into the fire when something happens.
Okay, what is your when the grid goes down and we enter an apocalyptic world go bag for Sally look like?
Initially I had I had, like, dog treats in there, I had, like, water purifying tablets, like, contact lenses, but then someone was like, when there's enough, when it goes down, it might get a little violent. So I did add like a pepper spray and
I thought you were gonna say like a machete.
I know. I was like, wait. So,
am I revealing
selling
too
a
much?
handle?
We should move on to the next topic. This is not a
No,
good brand
this is
placement.
like this
No,
pod
that's
has become a
good.
doomsday pod, and we talked about getting a bunker in New Zealand last time
You
and
heard
how
it
Yeah,
here
no,
first.
exactly.
everything ends in
Exactly.
spam. Like, we gotta prepare. The end of the world is coming.
So, like, it's funny, nothing was tech in your bag.
No, if tech goes down, tech is useless. If the cell service goes down, maybe
Alright.
solar chargers.
Maybe we should sell that. Great Chat branded solar-powered phone chargers for the apocalypse.
Or just
Great goods.
great chat doomsday
Doomsday
bag.
bag.
Yeah.
And you can get it in 5 flavors. It's like the bizarre shit that would be in
The
Max.
rainbow
Yeah.
one.
Okay, last one I saw, somebody posted some screenshots of, like, Uber experimenting with, the gig economy or the gig force for AI labeling work and how that might be, like, their next act, and I thought that was interesting, and made me think about, like, no, it's sort of I don't know if this is, like, kosher to say, but I feel like we keep talking about these AI companies and including, like, the data labeling companies that are obviously doing really well, like Mercor and, like, Handshake's getting into this game, Scale AI, of course. And I'm just like, what is AI about this? Like, it seems more similar to gig economy work, to be honest. Like, so I feel like this Uber play feels more appropriate. Like, a lot of the the data labeling companies like remind me of like Upwork. Do you consider those companies AI companies?
Well, I think they're enabling AI companies. Like, I'm starting to see a lot more of these like scale AI for robotics, which is similar to what I think Uber is doing. I haven't read the Uber thing in detail, so I don't know the details of it. But like LLMs, we've pretty much scraped all the text that's out there. I think image and video or sort of there as well. But then in when we're trying to understand physics and like spatial awareness for robotics and like worlds models, there's not enough data out there. So I think if this is what Uber is trying to do, is like just film people that are doing like daily tasks like, hey, if I drink this water and I tip this water, like what's the physics of this water, which is not going to be in like an image gen to the like specs that it is. So I'm seeing a lot of the companies that are doing similar things where you're just literally taping a camera to a person who is at a factory line, who's fixing the toilet, I don't know, because you want the humanoid to understand the physics of that. I don't think it's considered an AI company, but I think it's enabling an AI company to do things. I think it's smart.
Yeah, I mean, this also I think explains. I think there was that video game company that was valued at a lot recently, and people were freaking out about it. And it's like, or there was
Art,
maybe like a which one?
Descartes, or World Labs.
It was like 1 week ago. Yeah, it was like 1 or
General
2 weeks ago.
intuition. It was metal, and they spun off the lab, in partnership with Lightspeed on, like, a world lab building.
Yeah, and I think, I asked my friend who's a gamer, I was like, "Well, what's thinking behind this?" And they're like, "Well, there's been all of this work put into how to make things realistic inside games and how people play games." And it's like, that's actually useful. And so Sally, in your example, I think that's kind of like, you know, if an Uber driver is doing different tasks to kind of show like what the real world implications of something is. Like, I feel like, yeah, the gaming industry's probably been down that path and there's valuable information there.
Yeah, or just easier things like, "Hey, how do you fold a laundry?" or "How do you get the plate out of the cupboard?" Without the actual training data of that, they're not gonna be able to learn to the, like, spec that they do. So they need more of these videos, these, like, everyday videos, because you and I are gonna have little humanoids hanging out in a few years, and
Yeah. Who knew that like AI infrastructure would be people?
yeah.
The future is coming. I don't know if it's a good thing or a bad thing, but, I was telling Sally the other day I went to go visit one of these humanoid companies, and it's a company that
Oh, yeah.
operates in the home, and when I rang the doorbell, the humanoid opened the door, and I just freaked out, and I, like, threw
Ah,
associate in front of me. I was like, "You go in the house first, that way, if this robot decides to kill you,
Sacrifice
you're
the
the first
associate.
She's now leaving the firm,
Yeah.
so I feel like the 2 are directly
Yeah,
related.
the incident. I think all these, like, home helper robotics companies, like, we keep trying to copy the form factor of a human, and I think that ultimately what will be in the home will actually not be human shaped, right?
I agree with that. What's the now I'm blanking. Amazon's home device, Echo, whatever it's called.
Alexa?
Alexa,
Yeah.
sorry,
Or
yes.
yeah, Echo, yeah, I think maybe it's
Like,
Echo.
that is in some form, humanoid-ish. Like, you just add some arms and
No,
legs
but I I
and
f I keep seeing these pitches of, like, a humanoid robot folding laundry, like, one making the bed. I'm like, "Can we stop trying to replicate, like, a person with arms?" Like, I'd rather have it be just like a box, or like some, reasonably shaped, thing that is more utilitarian and less, like, mimicking, like, another person doing a task. But maybe that's just me.
It is both very cool and very unnerving, like, to see some of these humanoids in action and to, like, understand what the potential is very cool, but then I have this recurring thought that I'm gonna wake up in the middle of the night and my humanoid will just be, like, standing over me, or y it just it's unnerving to
Yes.
think of, like it's, like, very Westworld, it's not sentient, but it's sort of sentient and it's
reality is here.
human in your home.
There are some videos out of China, I don't know, Angela, if you've seen them, of, like, humanoids that are being, like that are, like, unleashed on the street, and there's one that went viral where the humanoid, like, tried to take someone else's Vespa, and
Oh
it
my
yeah.
gosh.
Yeah, I'm gonna share it in the notes.
Great. I saw this Broadway show in New York called Maybe Happy Ending that is literally about what happens to the humanoids when, like, their model is now, like, outdated and, like, where they go and the whole lives that they live. So and it was very sweet and I guess it was creepy, but it wasn't creepy when you were sitting there watching it, so highly recommend. Let's take it over to our main topic for today since we're talking about robots and AI. A question that I feel like, say Ashley inspired the other week. She was like, my friend came back from San Francisco, to New York and remarked that everyone she talked to thinks that we are at the top of a bubble or the bubble's about to burst, the AI bubble. And I think there's been debate on whether that's true. You see a lot of memes like, of the what movie is that with Steve Carell?
The Big Short, is that the one?
Yeah, 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 Big Short, where there's like the scene where he's like, we're in a bubble. And so that got us chatting about, are we in a bubble? What are some signs from past bubbles? And if we think that we're in a bubble, like what can you actually do about it? Or is there anything to do about it?
I feel like a lot of people are talking about Andrei Karpathy's interview from this
Right.
week, on Darkesh Patel's podcast, just about how he threw a lot of cold water on a lot of the things that are happening or the pace at which it's happening, including that HEI is, like, 10 years away. But I think the, like, one bit about the bubble piece is just, the, like, valuations of some of these companies, it's really just like a fundraising tactic more so than, like, underlying fundamentals. As, like, we were alluding to at the top, I was just in Paris, at a conference, and we were just talking about various valuations, and, it was just as if, like, everyone was just casually acknowledging that there was a bubble. Like, we were like, "Okay, the bubble is here, and we just need to be more disciplined on the companies we invest," right? And so I think we're just waiting for it to tip.
I saw an interview by Howard Marks, who is the founder of Oak Tree and like a very well-respected investor. And his comment was, everyone's saying we're in a bubble, but like if you actually look at the valuations, they're expensive, but not bubble-like yet. So it was interesting to hear his take. I mean, he's generally a conservative investor to say that we're not in a bubble. I also saw, I forget which venture firm sent this out, but I was just reading this morning. Like a state of the nation in terms of valuation, and they had 2 planets. There was planet AI and then planet Earth, and so even within the
Yeah.
realm of what's happening in the market, there may be more exuberance in one segment of the market, but then there's all these other companies that are not in planet AI, they're just in planet Earth that are definitely not in a bubble.
I think that's something that feels different, right? Because as we were sort of like going over what are all the signs of being in a bubble and like, that there's like valuation, capital flow mismatches. It's like, is it the whole market or is it just a segment of the market? And I think that we've talked about there being barbell in place right now, right? Or like the haves and the have nots, and it's just being really stark. So if you take that on average, then maybe like the valuations like on our average are actually not that outrageous, right? We're just selecting kind of like the or following like the sort of like the top of that um to show that the valuations are crazy, but it's like, well, maybe everything else, right?
And it could also, like,
Going down.
just be tipped towards, like, private market valuations because I assume Howard Marks is talking a lot mostly on public markets, I assume, or, like, on the growth stage, and you look at private market valuations where you might have a trillion-dollar company soon that will just remain private for a long time, and is that, like, sustainable for the valuations that it has? Which also is an interesting, like, side conversation around this debate of, "Hey, should you have quarterly earnings as a publicly traded company?" Because, the metrics are or, like, the measure at which, these companies are measured against is different public to private. When it comes to earlier stage companies, I feel like we're still just because these companies are growing so quickly, and I think it was, like, Brian Kim from Andreessen and some of the other and Hemant, obviously, from General Catalyst, just talking about what metrics needs to happen in order for you to get to the next round, and we're seeing these a lot of these experimental accounting and things that are kind of, like, also, like, helping support or inflate some of these numbers. So I think private market valuations are a lot feel at least for me, it feels a lot more frothy than probably the public side of things.
Yeah, and I do feel like for non-AI companies, I mean, I think that there is more scrutiny than ever actually on the health of the business and the metrics. So it feels like truly that if you're in one segment of the market, it's very planet Earth, and people are asking real questions and rooting things in like sort of like real metrics. And then if you're on planet AI, like the ability to tell a story and like, paint a vision for the future is really like taking, sort of like the investment there to new heights. And so yeah, it feels like two very separate worlds.
I'm curious if you're like just like earlier in your career looking to join an early stage AI company and you see these like bubble headlines, what would you do? Because I think I'm more skeptical now of these companies getting funded because you just all of a sudden get like really quick traction in 3 months and you have top tier funds going in, but a lot of it seems to be, or some of it seems to be a lot of smoke and mirrors. But
I think it would matter on the total comp breakdown on what's cash and what's equity, right?
I think it depends more on just your conviction in the team and the longer term value of the company. And in many ways, like valuation is just a measurement moment in time. And if there is a bubble and it collapses, then as long as you think that this company is going to be one of the winners, it's actually an opportunity for you to get more equity at a cheaper valuation when things crater. It's sort of like, buying the dip in that way. And so I think it ultimately comes down to your conviction in the team.
know your value, renegotiate your
Mhm.
equity,
Yep.
TLDR.
But I also think that bubbles are referred to as bad things, which, there's a lot of negative impacts from bubbles bursting. But I also think it's very necessary for tech to progress because you need the excitement and the catalyst and the energy of bringing capital and talent and founders together to move things forward. So it feels like there's also a lot of positive association with bubble that, gets lost in the mix. People talk about how the dot-com bubble was a huge bust, but it was, like, tiny in the grander scheme of where, internet adoption and mobile adoption went over the long term. So I think we probably all believe that Gen AI is here to stay, and the bubble is more temporary in terms of the zigzag up and down on the overall upward trajectory that's up and to the right. So if that's your belief, then I think join the company that you have the conviction in, and as Sally said, make sure to know your worth and negotiate for your equity through the cycle.
Yeah. So, I mean, Angela, do you think we're in a bubble?
I think that there will probably be, bumps along the way, but as I said, I think I believe that the trajectory of Gen AI is that it's here to stay and it's overall like up and to the right. It's like one of those like infographics of when you zoom up close, it's like down, up, and then
Yeah,
you
yeah.
zoom out and it's clearly um, to the right.
What's interesting about that is we were supposed to have a market correction a couple years ago. And I feel like depending on where you were, like situated in the market, like how you felt that, what that looked like. I think there are some people who didn't feel it and got to just like kind of ride the AI wave. I don't know if you call that a soft landing or if you call that just sort of like escaping, um, like a reset. But I agree that like resets generally are good and healthy. Things cannot always just continue up and to the right. But I think that in this one in particular, just from the vantage point of funds, I think somebody did the math on like that. Even if Gen AI is here to stay, it's like the enterprise value that would need to actually come to fruition, or like that would need to be created to like return some of these funds are sort of like numbers that are beyond our wildest dreams, right? Like we're talking about like $1 trillion outcomes for a lot of the money that has been put into Gen AI. And so that TBD. I mean, I remember when Facebook went public, and then I went to business school the following year, and there was this corporate turnarounds professor who just gave me a really hard time every day. I'd walk into class and he'd tell me about like the price to earnings ratio and how Facebook was just so silly. It's all fake. It's crazy. And this is somebody who's been studying economics for like 50 years. And I felt I couldn't like argue with him. I was like, eh. But then every now and then I think about it, I'm like, well, he turned out to be really wrong, and he's probably well retired or not even with us anymore, to see that, but I'm reminded of that in this moment
Yeah.
where it's like maybe something's possible, we just because it hasn't happened, right?
I think that's the whole point, which is when things are backwards looking or you're looking at a regression, you're constrained by what's happened in the past. And I think what we're seeing now with companies is something that's been unprecedented. So it's difficult to use that lens.
Well, so, like, if you believe we're in a bubble, what are some of the things, that you might be able to do to, like, I don't know, safeguard yourself. And I will say, even not in San Francisco, friends in Chicago. I was in Chicago last week. Um, I think people are thinking about like, oh, maybe I pull out or convert to cash everything that I have in the market temporarily, and then if I'm right and there's a dip, then I'll buy back in, right? Like, so there are people who are thinking about this right now, and that got me wondering, like, well, what are some other like classic things that people do when they believe that, like, a bubble popping is imminent.
Was it around the time when, you were mentioning, like, a few years ago when we thought we were gonna have a recession or a dip that people were buying gold bars from Costco?
I can absolutely see us talking about that. I don't think that was me specifically, but that is funny. Like,
Yeah,
is it on
it
a
was
pallet?
yeah,
Like, do you pull your
they were
car up?
selling
Yeah.
gold bars and they were flying off the shelves. There are definitely, like, moves to, like, reallocate, you know, to crypto and things. I think what's also just interesting, like juxtaposition is again in this like small silo of San Francisco and Silicon Valley, just because there's so much capital in the city right now and with all the secondaries, the like it is impossible to get your hands on real estate. Whether you're renting or you're buying, it's flying off the shelves. I was just casually looking at, looking for a new apartment in like various parts of the neighborhood, and they were saying that these apartments were going for like $300-400 above asking before, without seeing the apartment, before they even hit the market.
I think the housing market's a little bit different, like the buyer's market for these people in particular, because interest rates are like mortgage interest rates are so high still that like renting continues to make sense. So I think that if you're like in the market to find a new place to rent, like yeah, it's really bad right now. Um, but I also think that that is explained by the like how high mortgage rates are. But I also believe I'm one of those people that believes like the mortgage rates that we have right now are the ones that we'll probably have for a couple of decades. Like this is the new normal. I don't think that waiting for it to drop to, back to the twos and threes,
By the
it's
way,
gonna
not
happen.
financial advice. I don't know if we need a disclosures.
Yes. Very,
Um,
very anecdotally. Anecdotally.
Should we go to our rapid fire?
Yeah.
So the question we got this week, I'm an informal person, basically I'm a hugger. How do I maintain the line between personal relationships and professional? For example, if I'm giving serious feedback at a board meeting, it feels weird to give a hug.
Like, do you give a hug right after you give the feedback or like after? That's funny.
Actually, this is kind of interesting. Yeah, I'm curious what you.
I have this recruiter who's now a friend. Her name's Alice. She was my recruiter when I was interviewing at Facebook in like summer of 2008, and it was probably the first time I ever did something like a intense all day on site, and at the end of it, I was just so excited that, I was like, and she was walking me out. I'm like, thank you. Can I give you a hug? And she was like, yes. And we hugged. And like to this day, when we see each other, I'm like, can I give you a hug? And she's like, yes. And yeah, that was super weird. So like thinking back to that, no, I don't think that that was appropriate, but I did it and I got the job. So what's the takeaway there? And I have this lifelong friend, which is cool. But no, I think that like I'd be wary of giving like a hard and fast rule around this because I feel like the context is so important. Like, and we see on LinkedIn and Twitter all the time, like investors and founders hugging or, taking selfies together. And I just feel like I think a lot of
Selfie thing is
people,
funny.
especially if you work in tech, and venture, I think that you're still taking a path that's a little bit less formal and not, kind of off the beaten path. You don't wear a suit to work every day, right? Like there are all these sort of like you're probably wearing sneakers and jeans, like it's so I get why the lines are blurred and it's confusing, but
I find this question fascinating because I actually haven't thought about it, and I'm a hugger.
so you're just like hugging all the time.
Well, so I normally handshake if I don't know the person, but then when I leave, I end up hugging that person. And now I'm starting to question if that's weird.
Well, okay, you travel to Europe a lot and even in business context, I feel like there's the, kiss
They're
on
very much
both
more
cheeks.
intimate. So,
Yeah. And that's in a business context too,
yeah,
right?
yeah.
Oh. Okay. So yeah, non-answer, but the context really matters.
Maybe I need to question my own well, anyways, this is probably a good place to end.
Yeah. See you next week.
All right, bye. Thank you for listening to Great Chat. Have questions for us? Make sure to submit them at anothergreatchat.com. See you next week.